Welcome back, everybody, to the Party Pace podcast. And today we have got an awesome guest. We're going to be talking with Mitchell Connel, who owns a nonprofit bike shop. And we're going to talk about the We're going to talk about the nuances between a for-profit and a nonprofit bike shop. Mitchell is also a sometime contributor to the Radibus. You may see his byline on occasion. Before we get going, I do want to throw out that if you guys enjoy this content, definitely stop by the merch store. We just got a new shipment of our Party Pace stem caps. These are made in the USA by Cobra Frame Building. He's got his own YouTube channel, super fun guy, and he does like a really excellent job with these. And these might be our last batch for a while. As always, we've also got stickers because I'm only partially joking that I'm a sticker salesman with a YouTube channel. But enough of that. Let's talk with our guest today, Mitchell. How's it going?
Hey, doing great. How are you, Russ?
Good. Before we get into like the nuances of a for-profit, nonprofit, like we've met each other before, like ages ago. Can you tell people how that happened?
Yeah. A couple of times. So, uh, back in antiquity, 2010, before I was checking the Radivist, before alt bike was a term, I was following your blog on Pathless Pedaled. My twin brother and I were bike commuting around all the time, and my friend Robert Fishman and I had a really bad English teacher, I think sophomore year in high school. And, we were just, like, really unengaged in that class, and, to pass the time, we planned an imaginary bike tour, because again, we were just, like, reading EcoVelo, if you remember that blog, and reading your
Hmm.
stuff, and kinda when summer break rolled around, we had been planning it, for months. I was like, "I guess we should go on a bike tour." So then I saw that you and Laura were headed, kinda north on the Natchez Trace, and we were headed south, and again, because Instagram didn't exist, I, like, found your email and emailed you, and we met up on a campsite. I remember when, Robert Spencer and I rolled in, you were, like, casting, like, a fly fishing rod in the parking lot, and I was like, "That's them." And yeah, so that was that was the first time we connected. I went back and found that blog post, earlier this morning, and it was half my life ago, I think. I
Yeah,
looked at
that was ages ago. I remember you guys set up a I don't
Slackline.
know, Slack line. That's right.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so you can attest that like the stuff I'm into now on the channel, I've been doing for a very long time.
Yeah, yeah, exactly, you walk the walk. Yeah, I think you were on a long haul trucker,
Yeah,
and I think Laura was too with bull moose bars, like the
yeah,
cool Nitto ones, which I immediately
yeah.
recognized because I was looking at the Riv website. I was like, "Oh, cool." So then, yeah, we also connected a couple other times. Uh, I bought a Brompton to go to college, and when I was touring schools, I flew to Portland with my Brompton and then took it on the Amtrak to Eugene. And you and Laura were living in, Portland at the time, and then we
Yeah.
connected there and hung out, and then I was also on a bike tour, I think a couple years after that, going down the Pacific Coast, and what's the name of that bike shop in Portland that was super cool? They had all the rando stuff, and they were, like, playing movies all the time. Do you remember what I'm talking about?
Bell Colt.
Yeah,
Bell
Velo
Colt.
Cult.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was trying to come up with that name. Yeah, we
Yeah.
met up at Velo Cult. I was on the hunk at that point, and that bike is, still in the garage here. Still ride it all the time.
Nice.
Love that bike. Yeah,
Cool. Well,
a
it's
brief
cool to
history.
to reconnect on a live stream of all things.
For sure.
So let's talk about what exactly is a nonprofit bike shop? Like how does it differ from a for-profit one?
Yeah, absolutely. I think kind of on paper, the largest difference is how your profit is structured. So it's kinda all in the name. If you start a for-profit bike shop and you're really successful, and at the end of the year you have, let's say, $50,000 of like money left over, you can divide that into a profit share and can kind of literally put that in your pocket, or you share that between your investors, or you can elect to reinvest it into your business. But it's kind of up to you to do what you will with that money. When you're running a nonprofit organization, regardless if it's a bike shop or anything else, 100% of the revenue left over at the end of the year needs to be reinvested into the mission of the organization. So in the
Okay.
instance of Two Bikes, our mission is to create sustainability, opportunity, and community through bicycles. So we reinvest any money that we have left over to continue to pursue those goals and keep keep doing the stuff that we're doing.
Yeah. I'm gonna have you. Can you choke up on the mic a little bit? You're
Yeah, yeah,
dropping
yeah.
out a little bit.
No, no,
Okay, there you
absolutely.
go. Perfect. Now that sounds rich and velvety. So, so it's not that like the stuff is for free or people like trade you like monopoly money for stuff. It's just like at the end of the year the profits have to be reinvested. So what
Yeah.
does that look like for you guys? Does that go into programming? Buying more inventory to sell, or how what do you guys do with end of year profits?
Yeah. So I think I laugh a little bit because we don't have a ton of end of year profits left over, so it's not a problem that persists for us. But for us, our largest program is called the Bike School. It's a youth workforce development program. We basically just put up an application online and promote it widely through our partnering nonprofits and through the community, and kids can apply to come learn how to work in a bike shop, do kind of basic wrenching, and also we run an e-commerce platform that's basically completely run by our high schoolers, which is super cool. And our goal is to employ up to or more than 40 kids every year. So that's functionally where most of our funds go. We have all the same expenses that other businesses do. We have to pay for our insurance. We have to, pay our rent and our utilities and the pay all of your standard expenses. But programmatically, our big expense is to run our youth workforce development program, and then we also run two other programs. A program that we call Pedal It Forward, which is our bicycle recycling program, and also a community rides where we do host non-competitive bike rides.
Right.
Yeah.
Cool. What's I guess like there's another class of bike shop that I think people are familiar with, and that's the co-op. And I feel like almost all co-ops are nonprofit, but not vice versa. Are you guys a co-op as well?
That's an interesting question. I would say fundamentally we're not a bike co-op because we're not organized and operated cooperatively. Um, so kind of how our organization is structured, we have a board of directors like a standard nonprofit. We have 11 board positions, and then kind of they entrust me as the CEO of the organization. Our structure is a little funny, and we'll get into it later. Traditionally, the kind of head employee of a nonprofit is the executive director. So kind of
Hmm.
the board gives me the thumbs up or the thumbs down of kind of my initiatives throughout the year, and then I have a staff that I work really closely with to implement and execute our programs. I uh, promoted the word I'm looking for. Promoted our community coordinator, Sophie, this year to the executive director of the Two Bikes Knoxville position as I work on opening a second location in Chattanooga. So I changed my job title to president and CEO. That felt like it better kind of fit the work that I was trying to do, but it's all semantics and doesn't really matter. But yeah,
So
I
how
think
did
that
that? Or you're gonna
uh,
say?
I was just gonna say, I think that you're spot on. I think that almost all, bike co-ops are nonprofits, but not all nonprofits are bike co-ops.
Yeah. How did Two Bikes Knoxville come about?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, in 2016, there was a flyer. I was wrenching at, like, the local REI in Knoxville, and there was a flyer that said, like, "Youth Workforce Development Bike Shop," that got put up on the wall. I didn't see it get hung. But it had a phone number on it, and I called it immediately because when I was in high school, around the same time that I met you, I was volunteering at a nonprofit in Nashville, called the Oasis Center. They have a bicycle workshop program that's run by this guy, Dan Furbish, that's been a huge inspiration for me. Still, a super important guy to me. So I had been doing kind of youth workforce development work in the bike space for a while. And when I saw that flyer, I called a guy. His name was Preston Flaherty, and we connected. And I think after eating tamales for 30 minutes, we decided to partner up, and he hired me to run the programs for a nonprofit called Dream Bikes.
Okay.
It was a national nonprofit. There were seven locations, and it was predominantly sponsored by Trek. Um, and I worked there for 3 years for the, I think, no, I think it's almost five. regardless, for a couple of years, I ran the youth workforce development program. And then Preston changed. He went to work at a different company, and I was promoted to kind of do the administrative side of the nonprofit work. And then Trek announced that they were going to stop funding the program nationally. This was 2020, kind of peak pandemic post George Floyd, and it like really shocked me. It was like kind of sent ripples through kind of my community of bike people in Knoxville, kind of in the southeast. Was super surprised, but they decided that they wanted to go in a different direction, and that's totally okay. But we had amazing support in Knoxville. We were well connected, and people loved the work that we were doing. So Matt Zing and I, kind of who were working at Dream Bikes at the time, just decided that we wanted to keep doing similar work. We were on kind of a 10-hour road trip, and we're kind of imagining if we ran our own bike shop, how it would be run. And we had the idea of naming it Two Bikes, because we would donate half of our bikes to partnering nonprofits and community members in need. And I think we probably had like 6 or 8 more hours in the car and couldn't come up with a better name, so it stuck.
It's stuck. Nice.
Yeah, yeah, and that's kind of the origin story. That was about 3 years ago.
Okay. So you took over the Dream Bike space and probably took on their inventory, or did you have to get new stuff, or how'd that work?
Yeah, so that's a good question. So we didn't take over this space. We
Oh,
moved
okay.
into that space. Didn't have it was a 6,000 square foot warehouse. It was too big for what we needed, and also didn't have HVAC. So it was like like a bad look. It was like super hot in the summer when we're working with underserved kids, and like all of us are just like sweating so much. I was like, oh, this is not the vibe. So we found this other really amazing space that's in the neighborhood. It's called the Old City in Knoxville, where we're friends with everyone. Like Matt, who runs Good Golly Tamale, and Sean and Meg, who run Old City Java. Like those are our folks. So I approached the landlord and was like, hey, like, I have this idea for a bike nonprofit. Um, he and his family are like really successful. I was like the life or death of this spot for 1 year is not that important for you. Please give me a great lease for 1 year. Let me prove to you that this concept's going to work, and it's going to
Hmm.
contribute so much to the community. Like instead of it being another bar or another nightclub, because some nightclubs over there, is like you're going to have like groups of 100 cyclists like riding out of this front door. Like it's going to
Hmm.
contribute to the community feel of this neighborhood that he's like really intrinsically and extrinsically invested in. And I sweet talked him into giving it to us. So we we moved into that space for like a crazy good deal. Um, and there is so when Dream Bikes closed, any 501(c)(3) organization, which means the IRS considers you a nonprofit, when you dissolve, you have to donate all of your liquid and illiquid assets to a nonprofit, preferably with a similar mission. Excuse me. So I think when they announced that they were going to close, like less than 2 weeks later, I called Maggie at the time, who was running Dream Bikes nationally, and I was like, "Hey, if I start a new nonprofit, like, can I have all this stuff? Like, you're not gonna have to move any of it. You're not gonna deal with it. I'll take care of all of it. I'll put all of it in storage. I'm gonna get, everything moved out of this building, so we like fulfill all of our like lease promises." And she was like, "Yeah, whatever. It's like one less thing for her to worry about." And I was like, "Yes." So we got like 4 benches worth of old tools. We got a bunch of good bikes. And I think we got $10,000, which if you're
Nice.
starting a business is not a ton. But it was something. So it made a huge
Yeah.
difference for us. And still
Are
eternally
any of
grateful.
the Yeah. Are any of the other Dream Bikes operational, or did they just like shut down, whatever branches they had?
Yeah, so there's still a location in Madison that's operating, and I believe there's still a location in Milwaukee. Um,
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm curious, like, how did as a bike nonprofit, how did post COVID treat you guys? Are you a little bit more insulated because you're not buying massive inventory, or do you still feel the pinch, or what's your
yeah,
experience been like?
yeah, it was very challenging to start a business because at the end of the day, a nonprofit is still a business. During the pandemic, we had a lot going on. So there's a huge demand for bikes, and there was a huge demand for affordable bicycles. And I think that's the thing that one of the things that bicycle nonprofits can do really well is you go into most bike shops and your entry level bike is $1,200. But if you go into most like used bike shops or bike nonprofits or bike co-ops, you're gonna have a lot of bikes on the floor that are 3, 4, $500. So it's way more accessible. And the huge kind of bubble of demand in the pandemic were novice cyclists, people that were really inexperienced. So we pivoted really early on and we started posting like all of our bikes on Instagram stories. And people were buying
Mm,
like because our inventory was changing so fast, it was crazy. But at the same time, it's a story that's been told, but like we couldn't get chains. Like Altus derailleurs, rest in peace. Like all of those kind of nuts and bolts, micro shift 7x3 shifters. Like
mhm.
all that stuff was super, super hard to find. And when it did come in stock, like you could feel the bullwhip effect. You're like, oh, let's buy 30. And like you're like racing to type in your credit card on QBP. It was
Yeah.
very stressful. But I want to go on record. I think that we did a very good job, like managing, like not over ordering during the pandemic. We promised we were not the people that were ordering 600 Shimano 10-speed chains. But we were competing for 68 mil sealed bearing bottom brackets. Yeah, we were ordering a bunch of those. So yeah, it was really challenging. But from a different perspective, it was this amazing opportunity where we were able to give away so many bikes to kids and to adults, and then also sell so many bikes to people that could afford them during the pandemic. And then now, like it's still a really hard time to be in the bike industry. I feel terrible. Like my friends are like have bikes on their sales floor that are marked down below what they paid for them. Um,
Mm,
so we don't have that issue. I mean, we have a whole different set of issues, but we're not sitting on a bunch of really valuable inventory that's going to go out of style in 2024. So we are better insulated in the kind of challenges of the 2023 bike supply demand crunch, but certainly the pandemic was super hard.
yeah. Like what, do you guys sell any new bikes at all, or is it mostly like, used and refurbished?
No, so it's all used and refurbished.
Okay.
Um, I have a bunch of friends that run bike shops in Knoxville, and they do an awesome job. And I don't feel like I can't do anything with a new bike that they can already do. So I kind of one of my MOs for running the nonprofit is I really want to focus on the things that we do really, really well and kind of stay in our lane. That's what we're doing right
Yeah.
now.
Yeah. What program are you most proud of that you guys run?
That's a good question. I think it's funny. I'm like going back and forth. I think for me, like for the arc that I've been able to build over the last kind of decade to decade and a half, running a youth workforce development program, working with underserved youth, is really really rewarding. Working for Dream Bikes for many years, and I was a very confident young person. I all the time was like, I could organize this better. I could run this program better. Which is the thoughts of someone in their mid-20s. Um, but it's really really rewarding to run that program. And one we pay all of our kids $15 an hour, which I'm really proud of.
Mhm.
That's about double what we were able to offer kids, in the past at Dream Bikes. And also trying to create job training for young people that is a little bit more future proof. So we have kids that love like kind of the hands-on aspect where they want to learn how to service bearing systems, and they want to learn how to true wheels. But we also run a e-commerce program. So like now we're trying to figure out like, should we be working on teaching these kids like AI generated SEO content? Like, why not? Like,
Right.
and like we have run this young program, and it all feels super nimble. So for me, as long as we're iterating and improving, then I think that we're doing something right. So it's been cool. Like all of our kids learn how to uh, edit photographs that they took in Adobe Lightroom, and like
Mhm.
we also teach them file management. This is like shout out Matt Zing. Yeah, I like wish someone taught me file management in high school. Um, Matt Zing did video production for a long time. So I'm sure that you're probably the same way, doing a lot of video content yourself, but it's like to keep the files organized, you have to be like really neurotic. You do a lot of like 001, like shoot on January 14th. So
Mhm.
keeping like this archive of all the bikes that have been photographed by our kids and then teaching them an effective way to organize all of it. Like if we teach them nothing else, that's a pretty good skill to take with you through life.
Uh,
So I'm really
how
proud of that
long
program.
so how long is, so a kid wants to do the program, how long does it last?
Yeah, that's a good question. So right now they're 6-week internships. They're
Okay.
condensed. So we've been trying out a couple of different models. Right now we're doing these 60-hour internships that are spread out over 6 weeks, so we can work with more kids. Historically,
Mhm.
we've had like less interns and we do longer internships. But it's been cool. Like right now, a new like bike rental shop. I think that they do. I haven't been to it yet, but the shop Bear Paw at Baker Creek Preserve in Knoxville just opened up, and they have 2 kids from our youth workforce development program, which kind of blew me away. I think another one of our kids is working for a shop out west. So I think like our job and kind of my vision is not like I don't need to teach all of these young people how to like do a full $300 service on like a full sus bike. It's like I just want to get them those basic skills, learn how to look a customer in the eye and say welcome to the
Mhm.
shop, change a flat tire, kind of build that foundation that then they can apply that to whatever career they want or whatever path they want to take next. Um,
Right.
yeah.
Cool. Should have them, maintain a YouTube channel for the shop.
It's hard. We've worked with some of the kids on social media, but it is it's hard to do some quality control. It's like, "Oh, no, 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 don't publish that, like, pull
Yeah.
that off."
Or maybe don't do that.
Yeah, but it would we've been trying to get I have, like, this dream. A lot of the people who, do instruction on, like, TikTok or YouTube, like, fit a certain kind of profile. I think, like,
Mhm.
what if you were watching a YouTube video and it was, like, a young person of color teaching you how to change a flat tire? Like, that would be really cool content to be populating the internet with. So, we've
Yeah.
definitely got a vision, but, we've got a small team, and again, are just trying to focus on the stuff that we're doing really well. But yeah, I wanna do more social media stuff with the kids for sure. They probably hate that I'm saying kids, young adults.
Yeah. Let's see. All right. So we've got 95 people in the chat. If you guys have any questions for Mitchell, put them in the comment section. If you guys have been to Two Bikes Knoxville, let us know.
Wow.
I've not been yet. I'd like to make a visit out there before we leave, but we'll see. Um, let's
Hey, Jared.
see. Yeah, you see Jared Bunk in the house. Um, so let's talk about. It sounds as if you're branching out. What's up? What's up in Chattanooga?
Yeah, so kind of as I was just speaking to, we had a bit of a head start in Knoxville. We had been running a bike nonprofit for about 5 years previously, and we had built a really strong community in Knoxville. A lot of people were really passionate about it. So when we announced that we were opening Two Bikes Knoxville 3 years ago, I think actually Spencer Harding like made a post on the Radives for us about it. But like that kind of spread the word pretty quickly, and then like people were jumping on board because we already had a rapport in the community, and people were really excited. We had some money from Dream Bikes, like we were talking about. It kind of felt like yeah, again, we had a bit of a head start. I think the work that we're doing in Two Bikes is really awesome, and I'm interested to see kind of how not necessarily how big we can make it, but how broadly does it still work? Is it something
Hmm.
that like we need that community of people previously invested in Knoxville, or can we create something really special like we have in Two Bikes Knoxville in another community? So kind of just dipping our toe in the water. And I think a part of it personally is I just want to prove it to myself that the two bike I've I've been working in the bike nonprofit space for half my life, and it's the thing I'm like the singularly most passionate about. Um,
Hmm.
so I think two bikes is like a really, really good idea, and I kind of want to prove to myself that it is,
Yeah.
that it works broadly.
So
But
do
I'm
you
pretty
guys
tired.
work? Yeah. Where are you at with the Chattanooga? Do you have a space?
No, so we're super early right now. So kind of I moved down here about 8 weeks ago, and I didn't want to even start working on the project until I was in the community. The thing that I really want to avoid is it's like, oh, who even are these people? Like
Mhm.
that would be lame. So I moved down here and started building out what's called a capital campaign. So I need to build kind of all the marketing materials. And it's great because I have all of this precedent from Knoxville. I have really good from day one. We've been generating really, really good data, which is important to me. So I have great data. I have great proof of concept. So now I need to kind of build a package, like just a pitch deck, a la Shark Tank, that
Mhm.
I can go to foundations in the municipality and prospective funders in Chattanooga, and raise some funds to get it off the ground. So I'm
Cool.
building that capital campaign right now. My next step is to build an advisory board, so stakeholders in the community that can help get us in touch with the right people, whether those people are government officials that could help with funding, or just community members, people that represent the underserved communities in Chattanooga and help us get connected to the right people there. And then from there, we'll work on fundraising and then secure a location and start the build out.
Cool. So that ties in really well to Jared's question. Do you have any advice for someone looking to solidify the first round of grants?
Yeah, I do. So we've been really successful applying for grants. I would say focus on your programming first. Um, I think I said this earlier. One of our strengths at Two Bikes is we have a very narrow focus. If you approach a funder or a foundation and talk about the 10 different things that you're doing really well, that's really challenging if you have a staff of 1, 2, or 3 people. I think what's a really compelling argument is to give them a measurable impact that you're looking to create in the community, that's very well defined and kind of within the scale of your current organization, and focus on that. Our For us, it's our youth workforce development program. Like we spend a ton of time hosting community rides, but that's a passion project for us. Like, I know that I'm not gonna get funding from the United Way to host coffee outside rides, you know what I mean?
Right.
But creating opportunity for underserved youth, there is funding for that. So we really focus on that kind of, that program, get really narrow in our scope, and also my probably number 2 piece of advice would be build relationships. They any foundation, even the United Way, you can find the CEO of the United Way of your location, and you can probably find their email on the website. Like, send them an email, go get coffee with that person. It's you know, Show them the thing that's universal with every person that's commenting on this or watching is we're all really, really passionate about bikes. It's the feedback that I receive often. It's like, "Oh, I can tell you're really passionate about this." I'm like, "Yeah, for
Mhm.
sure." Like, that's such an asset that you're not fundraising for sports program at a university. I'm sure people love that too. But your heart's in the right place. You really wanna make an impact. So use that to your advantage.
Yeah. So how's it been kind of embedding yourself into, like, essentially a new community? Like, where did you start?
In Chattanooga?
Yeah.
Yeah, so there wasn't a critical mass here when I moved down, and I was like, "Oh, I wanna meet all the bike people." So I was like, "I guess I'm gonna, host a critical mass ride." Um So I made a, graphic on Photoshop and put it on the internet, and I just DM'd it to every bike shop. And I was like, "Hey, like, it would mean so much if you would share this. I'm trying to, like, bring the whole cycling community of Chattanooga together." And people responded
Mhm.
super positively. There's awesome shops here. Velo Coffee, is in Chattanooga and is awesome. Cycle East is an awesome shop. And, like, those kind of especially the community-focused people in town, they have big platforms, and then they started to promote it, and we had just under, like, 40 people come out to the first critical mass ride,
Nice.
and it was super fun, and I was, like, you know, uh, super nervous because I don't know a ton of the people here. I have, like, 5 friends that live in Chattanooga, and, I'm nervous, like, are people gonna be receptive to me trying to start a nonprofit here? And, like, I wish I could remember his name, but there was a guy with, like, a Dennis Rodman jersey on, and was like, "Look super punk," like, doesn't look like me. And I was like, oh, like, is he gonna be nice? And he came to me, he's like, dude, I'm just so appreciative that you're like putting on this critical mass. And like, I know all about Two Bikes and I'm so excited about it. Like, if there's any way that I can help, let me know. And I was like, okay, cool. Like, this is gonna be great. And we all kind of have in the cycling industry and people who are riding bikes like this shared set of values um, that seem pretty universal. So it's
Yeah.
been good.
Yeah. It's definitely hard to kind of embed into a new place, but at least there is like some kind of commonality with the bikes. Like we use that when we travel. Like last year we went to Spain and or to Girona, and went to the bike shops and tried to find our people there, and start to put down some roots. So it's pretty interesting. We got a question here from Megatran T Sanchez. For your inventory, do you actively shop for used bikes, or are you completely dependent on donations? Like, how does a nonprofit bike shop come upon used bikes to sell?
Yeah, we shop for them at the dump. We have like a kind of a cool setup in Knoxville. We have the green light from the local municipality to pull any bikes from the local transfer stations, which is which is illegal. But like the people who like manage the local dump just pull the bikes out. I haven't talked to the guy in a while, but he just calls me and he's like, "Hey, we've got 20 bikes waiting for you." And like a lot of them end up getting scrapped, but it's still cool because like any of the bikes that we're like taking from a transfer station, like we're still gonna take those to the scrap yard. So they're getting recycled, which is way better. But largely that's less than 10% of our inventory. More than 90% come from donations. So
Yeah.
people drop them off at the shop. And I think that's why it's really important. Who does a good job doing this is Jared. To like run a great social and to like really kind of shout from the highest rooftop the work that you're doing because you need to get the word out there and we don't have any money for marketing.
Hmm.
So we rely heavily on people donating bikes to the shop, and then also we host bike drives. Um, it's like a great thing if you can like go on your local city government webpage and find the city council people's names and like talk to them and try and convince them to do a bike drive for you, or like I don't know, churches or neighborhood associations, like whoever you can. If you can find someone else, because they take a ton of time. So like
Hmm.
we don't really have time to do a ton of bike drives, but if we can find a champion for the project and then we help, we've had a lot of success doing that. We actually just had
Yeah.
the county commissioner host a bike drive for us, and like a great bike drive will get like 20 bikes and donated. And I don't know what he put in the water, but we had like 100 plus bikes donated. And we were like, "Oh,
Oh, dang.
no, like, what are we gonna do?" We didn't have enough storage, but we figured it out.
So how does a bike drive work? Like, what's the messaging? Is it like, if you want to donate or get rid of an old bike, or?
Yeah. Basically, like, "Hey, do you have an old dusty bike in your garage that you don't need? Like, give it to us, we'll recycle it, we're gonna make it awesome, and either turn it into a commuter that someone can buy that can't afford a new bike, or that we'll give to a person in need, through another nonprofit." And
Right.
people respond
Yeah.
super positively to that.
Yeah. I know we have a great, they're definitely a nonprofit. I don't know if they're a co-op in town, Free Cycles Missoula. And every spring they get, we give them a bunch of stuff that we reviewed on the channel.
I bet they're stoked.
They're so stoked. Like we dropped some stuff off the other day, and they're like, "Did you drop off this thing? A couple months ago?" It's like, "Yeah." It's like,
Oh, man.
is it?
One time we had this, like, old head drop off a bunch of, like, dusty boxes, and we opened it up, and it was all, like, 90s and early 2000s, like, Paul Anno bits. It
Oh,
was, like,
dang.
Paul stuff, like, Phil Wood stuff. It was, like, all vintage mountain bike stuff, like, a bunch of the, like, I think it's, like, 956 Grupo, like, XTR stuff. But
Hmm.
it was like the holy grail. It's the best day of my life. But can you imagine, like, working my job, like, we I believe firmly, like, we don't say no to anything. Like, you bring in a bike that's completely like a rust bucket, we're gonna say, like, "Thank you so much." Like, that means the world that you brought this down here. And yeah, like, it ends up getting scrapped, and that's okay. Like, we're gonna recycle it. But that is, like, that's standard for us. Like, that you're
Mhm.
expecting that, and you're expecting, like, to open up the box, and it's, like, some, like, dry, rotted Novara, like, socks or whatever,
Yeah.
and it's just, like, Paul stuff. It's like,
Right.
"Ooh." So great.
Yeah. Yeah, I think there's one bike I reviewed and they didn't want it to pay the shipping back, so I just dropped like this relatively new bike in the box at the co-op, and they're super stoked.
Tears in their eyes, I'm sure.
Yeah. Let's see. So Tom Barty asked, "What is a bike drive?" Hopefully that answered your question. Julia says, "Bikes from the dump are awesome. My first two bikes were Reclaim for the dump and spruced up."
That's the vibe,
Um,
Julia.
yeah. And then Rob, a bike drive is a great idea. Yeah. Um, let's see. Cool. We've got about 84 people in the chat. If you guys have questions for Mitchell or any questions about what a nonprofit bike shop does exactly, let us know in the comments.
Russ, I have a question
Um,
for you.
sure.
Will you tell me a little bit about visiting LA?
Yeah, it was, it was a little on the rough side when I went there. Like they didn't have hardly anything. And I was
Gotcha.
asking them like, where are things going to go? And they're like, we don't know yet. We're going to put things up and see how the feng shui feels.
Yeah.
But I have to say they picked up, like I haven't been to Highland Park in forever. It's a neighborhood in LA. It's actually not too far from where my parents live, but they picked a sweet spot because there's like an awesome like taco shop like right next door. There's a great coffee shop down the street, and it just felt like a pretty hopping neighborhood. So I think it's going to be a sweet space.
Yeah, I was, given the golden saddle hat
Ah,
the day that Two Bikes opened.
nice.
So I'm like, we'll always remember it fondly. I was like, I, like, really wanted this hat, but I was like, "Oh, once you include shipping to the East Coast," I was like, "Oh, no." And then somebody gave it to me. It was, like, as a, gift on the first day that we opened. So I was like, "Oh, this hat is exactly as old as Two Bikes."
Nice.
And then I
Yeah, I
really
think they'll
wanted
do.
that. I'm sorry.
I think they'll do pretty well. Like I knew like Kyle Kelly's story, but I didn't realize that his partner Sean, like took over the ownership of King Cog in New York, and also opened Sun and Air. So he's like a bike shop opening veteran at this point.
Yeah, I think that they're gonna be a good pair. It seems like Sean, has a certain, like, kind of get it done attitude, and he knows probably some of the, like probably a great operations focused person, and then, like,
Yeah,
Kyle's got all the vibes, and I'm sure it still does, like, clearly knows how to run a bike shop really, really, really well, but I can see kind of how they could have a great pairing.
yeah. I forget if I don't know if I edited it out of the final video, but we were chatting and Kyle was like, the whole time GSC was around, we didn't have a website.
Yeah, yeah,
Like it was purely the gram. And Sean's like, we've got a website. There's probably gonna be like e-commerce and stuff. So they'll be a good team to balance each other out.
yeah. One of my focuses, I feel like going to group bike rides is really intimidating. So if you go on the Two Bikes website, it's like twobikes.org/community. It's our list of all of our events. We publish them I think like February or March, and it's every group ride that we're going to have until the end of the year. And we like outline the distance, the elevation, the average speed, the terrain, like what kind of clothes people are probably going to be wearing. Like trying, it takes forever and it's really annoying, but it's like pretty good nitty gritty, and I think it does a good job like setting the expectation. Because it also
Yeah.
like sucks. I've done this like, not to dox myself as a roadie, but I like wear lycra and ride road bikes sometimes. Have you ever like shown up to a group ride and you're like kitted out and like everyone's in jeans? You're like, oh no.
You didn't get the dress code.
Yeah, I was like, "That's such a nightmare." But I always laugh. I think Kyle's group rides look so cool, like, all the,
Hmm.
like, urban cross stuff, but, like, I love his descriptions. They're, like, 500 words, and it's like, "When is this?" Like, I'm catching the vibe, but I'm not sure, like, when the ride is. But I don't live in LA, so it doesn't matter, but he's the king of it. Seems like whatever he's doing is really cool. Yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, it's amazing. It's amazing how they've grown the brand outside of that small space using the gram.
yeah.
So,
This is a good question for Matthew.
yeah. So how do
Um,
you go about getting the bikes back into the community?
yeah. So we we have a pretty dialed way that we handle this now. That's different from how it used to be. So we try to excuse me, we try to kind of use other nonprofits as conduits whenever possible. So there's a ton of great resources. We kind of learned early on that we're all pretty good bike mechanics, but we're not great social workers. Um, and I like that's not my degree, that's not my specialty. So we decided early on to start partnering up with other nonprofit organizations that do have like, a half dozen social workers on staff. So most of the time we'll donate like 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 bikes to other nonprofits like Big Brothers Big Sisters, Boys and Girls Club, or like adult focused.
Right.
Nonprofits and kind of let them distribute them to the community equitably. And the exception to
Hmm.
that is if we have like unhoused members of the population who come into Two Bikes with a signed document from a social worker saying they need a bike for transportation, as long as we have something that'll fit them that's upstairs, we have like green like twist ties that let us know that the bike's good to go so we can just grab it quick. Then we'll like make sure that they head out with a bike that's good to go. And then we also have kind of an elevated project where if we're working with a nonprofit that has an individual who needs a bike for transportation, like very specifically, and that kind of has a very specific need, then we have what's called a bike scholarship program that we have a little bit of funding kind of dog eared for it annually, where we'll outfit them with a bike that's, like, super reliable, like, something that's, like, between $500 and $1,000, something that we put a ton of time into. Not to say that bikes that we donate are not all amazing, but the reality is, like, they're not all $1,000 bikes.
Hmm.
And then we give them a helmet and a lock and lights, and, like, try and really kit them out so that when they need to go to work the next day, they're kind of ready to go. And, like,
Yeah.
I wish we could do that with every person that we're donating bikes to, but we can't. So we work with other nonprofits so they can be like, "Hey, this person's got this really specific need right now." We're like, "Cool, we'll handle it."
Hmm. It does seem really smart to like kind of rely on the strength of other nonprofits to help find the people that really need the bikes rather than taking that on. It seems like a big task.
Yeah, I think my advice for people trying to start bike nonprofits is, like, do less, do less, do less, do less. Like, what's the thing that you're good at, and just focus on that. Um, that if you try and solve all of the problems in your community, like, I mean, you're gonna get really burned out really fast, and you're trying to climb a mountain that's too big that you aren't well resourced for. Like,
Yeah.
none of us have a lot of money, so it's like, you know, use that limited resources that you have to do the thing that you really wanna do.
Yeah. Have you already sussed out potential nonprofit partners in Chattanooga?
I haven't spent a ton of time, finding other nonprofit partners in Chattanooga yet. That'll be kind of farther down the line. But what I feel really good about is a lot of the organizations that we work with in Knoxville. They like hear through the grapevine that we're working on opening a Chattanooga location, and they're like, "Hey, I know someone in Chattanooga that you need to get in touch with." So I have an Excel spreadsheet of like all of my contacts and community leads in Chattanooga that I'm just keeping
Yep.
on ice.
Nice. Um, cool. So I'm curious, like in terms of your operating budget for the year, how much like is it mostly grant funded or is it through the what sales you guys do through the shop?
Yeah. So a cool thing about nonprofits is you have to publish your financials annually. It's called a 990. It's basically your tax return at the end of the year, and you can use websites like GrantStation and ProPublica to research other nonprofits. So if you're trying to open a nonprofit bike shop, you should find really amazing bike nonprofits that already exist, like Bike Works or Boise Bicycle Project. And like dig through their financials. Be like, how much money are they spending? But also it makes it so I can talk about this stuff pretty fluently without being awkward about it because you can just find it all on the internet. Um,
Mhm.
so our annual operating budget, it started at about 200,000, is now about half a million. Um, we have it changes. Right now we have 6 full-time staff members. All of our staff members have full benefits, which I'm super proud of.
Mhm.
Um, we make about half of that through commercial activity. So we make like a little bit less. We make about 40% through like selling bikes and selling locks and lights. Again, I try not to kind of step on other bike shops. We focus on really the products to sell that serve our community and the people that we're working with. We have people come in that's like, "Hey, will you order me like a Fox 36?" And I'm like, "No, like go to the other great mountain bike shops for that."
Right.
Um, and then I think, from there, the other 60% of our revenue comes from, grants, individual donations, and, like a fundraising event that we hold every year, which I will plug right now. We're having, like, a cocktail party in the end of August. One of the cool ways that you can contribute to our mission, we're launching on August 1st. We're gonna have an online auction. So if you wanna, like, bid on cool bike stuff, 100% of that revenue, comes back to our youth workforce development program. Um, and we've been hustling. We've got some, like, really cool stuff. We have a signed jersey from the entire men's and women's team from Legion of LA that's gonna be on auction. We have some, like, a $500 gift card from MAP. Like, shout out to MAP, thank you so much. We have some cool stuff from, like, Rafa, State, Silka, like, Appleman, Bicycles just donated a crank set, which I'm
Oh,
very
nice.
stoked on. I haven't touched one of those yet. So lots of really cool stuff. And you can find it if you go to twobikes.org. You follow our rabbit hole, you'll be able to see all that.
So are you gonna do it like simultaneously live and online, or is it just primarily online?
Yeah, so we're hosting the actual event on August 30th. So people can kind of bid on the online auction at the event. It closes at 8:30 p.m., but you can bid on it between August 1st and August 30th.
Okay, cool.
Um, so internet, blow it up. Thank you so much.
There's a cool bike co-op in Tucson called Bikes. I don't know if you've been,
Yeah.
but one of their big annual fundraisers is like an art show
Oh, cool.
where lots of the local artists make stuff from bike parts and stuff. I've always wanted to buy something from there, but it's not when we're uh, in town. So it'd be awesome if they had like an online component. I
Yeah.
don't know, maybe they do, and I've just missed it, but
I know.
that's cool to hear. Yeah.
It is. Oh, there's a really cool bike nonprofit in Birmingham, and their big fundraiser is like a bike jousting event. And I was like, "Way to keep it punk, team! Like, keep it punk."
So I'm curious, is there like how much in communication are you with other bike nonprofits? Is there like a secret bike nonprofit listserv where people share best practices, or do you know what I
Um,
mean? Like, do you guys keep in contact just to see like how do you troubleshoot this problem, or
for sure, some. The folks from Boise Bicycle Project sent us a postcard early on that was like, "Hey, keep up the good work," and like Bike Works in Seattle and Boise Bicycle Project are like huge influences on me. Shout out to Jimmy, who has one of the co-founders of the bike co-op or the bike nonprofit in Boise, and I saw that he's about to step down from that position. Like, great career. Like, you're the dude. Like, so impressive. What he was able to build there with an amazing team. So, but yeah, I get DMs, or Two Bikes gets DMs from other bicycle nonprofits somewhat regularly. I don't know how much direct communication I make. Um, I've wanted to go to Boise and spend like a week just like a fly on the wall there, but I haven't done that yet.
Mhm.
But I mean, I do. I dive into the annual reports of other like large bicycle, or not necessarily large, but really impactful bicycle nonprofits. I wish there was a secret Slack group, but not yet.
Yeah. Do you get a sense of if they're on the rise or on the decline?
The rise.
Are they?
Yeah, I think so. I think that, I think that as bikes become more and more high end, and awesome, like, I think the modern high-end road bike, my high-end mountain bike, I think those are awesome tools that are really good at the task that they're trying to achieve. But I think that there's still a big demand for cool commuter bikes and for just simple bicycles. A bike-shaped bike is what we say a lot of the time. Um, I think there is a demand, and I think that the thing that's really cool about nonprofit bike shops is that we have to make money. I think every good nonprofit should be run like a business, but we don't have to make that much. Um,
Mhm.
I've seen a lot of really cool bike shops that start out. kind of with a punk ideology that are like making jammers, making cool refurbished bikes. But the reality of that is it's really hard to make money doing that. And at
Mhm.
the end of the day, like everyone wants to make enough money to survive through the winter. And the way you do that, or an intuitive way to do that in a lot of for-profit bike shops, is to carry higher end products. And I don't think that there's any shame in that. But I think that we're insulated from that because we're not going to sell. We currently don't and have no plans to sell new bikes. Certainly, like no high end products. Um, that we can keep, selling the jammers, selling the cool used commuter bikes.
Mhm.
The old hard rocks with like knockoff albatross bars and walled baskets on them.
Yeah. I'm glad to hear that you think they're on the rise. Like, a lot, I don't know if it's obvious from the YouTube channel, but a lot of the ways I've learned to tinker on bikes has been from bike co-ops.
Yeah, yeah, that's
Just
me too.
grabbing random parts and making it work, and my impression from, like, the comments I get from these videos, it's like, "Have you never, like, been to, like, a bike co-op where your task is just to, like, assemble and make
Yeah,
things work?" Hence my affinity for friction shifting.
yeah, yeah, for sure. I think like one of my proudest moments, working at Two Bikes, we had this high schooler Ferris come through the shop, and he finished his internship, and was clearly more invested in the project than most of our other kids. I think that learning to work on bikes is a great tool to learn how to work with your hands, but of course, not every kid is going to become really passionate about riding bikes. But like Ferris really took to it, and now he rides this kind of like this old Voodoo, and it's got like a 26-inch rear wheel that's like V-brake with like a Surly fork that's for a 29er, so like the axle crown's way off, but now we put a 29er wheel on it, so it's better. It's like it's the bike co-op vibe. It's like nothing on that
Yeah.
bike really should work. It doesn't work that well, but like it's his passion project. Like he loves working on it so much, and he just caught the vibe kind of early on. And I was like,
Mhm.
oh, I can see so much of myself like at 17, 16, 17, 18, like in Ferris. And like now
Yeah.
uh he's been like helping us lead some of the group rides and is like coming to the coffee outside rides. I don't even think he drinks coffee. Like uh, when we kinda, like, are able to spark that passion in young people, I'm like, "Oh, like, maybe it's worth it after all," like
That's kind of one of my side missions for the YouTube channel is for people to get comfortable, like, messing around with their bikes. Like, you don't have to be like perfect objects. It's okay to make it
Yeah.
your own in whatever weird way. Just yeah.
Have you
Yeah.
read that, the Ron, article on the Radavist that got put up a couple days ago about the blue lug stuff?
Mm-mm. No, what was it about?
It's very cool. So, he kind of, goes back in his history and talks about, like, racing, like, Cat 2, Cat 3, and then, like, kinda getting into, like, kind of rando-y stuff, and then being super inspired by, Blue Lug. Um, and then they're interviewing one of the folks that founded Blue Lug, and he talked about mama bikes, which is, like, a term in Japan for, like, like, your standard, like, bike that has, like, 2 child seats, everyone's carrying groceries. And I was like, "Yeah, like, that's the vibe, like, everyone should have a mama bike, just, like, a super, like, non-precious object that is, like, yeah, teaches one, like, that you can just go bike around and not have to worry about it, like, it's not a precious thing, but then also, like, a bike that you don't need a torque wrench to work on, that you can make
Right.
mistakes on, exactly, like and I think the YouTube, channel is really cool that it's like, uh yeah, I mean, I love your kind of, like, tinker attitude. I think more people should f I think more people should break things, like, "Great, you broke your bike, now you can pay for a bike shop to fix it." Like, that's a win-win.
Yeah, yeah. I've been definitely, like, inspired by, folks like Grant, but also, like, Sheldon Brown. I feel like this most recent iteration of young cyclists might not know who Sheldon is, and I wanna bring some of, like, that dusty knowledge to the internet.
The king. Yeah, if you don't have laminated crib sheets by Sheldon Brown about, like, esoteric tire sizes, like,
Yeah.
you're missing out. you're
Yeah.
missing out. He also has a great cable pull ratio. Like if you're in a bike co-op, and you're trying to figure out if the cable pull ratio is compatible between two like Shimano parts, like he has a great crib sheet that explains everything in much more detail than I could ever remember. Yeah, I agree. Like let's bring the Sheldon Brown vibe back. If I don't know if it's gone, but let's just
Yeah.
kindle that fire.
Yeah. I have a friend that was who works at adventure cycling. He said one of the new hires I was like, "What's this thing?" And it was like, "Or how's this work?" And he was holding up a front derailleur, and I was just like,
Is that real?
and was it this for keeping the chain on, right? On your one
Yeah.
by.
Yeah. This is a
Um
weird wolf tooth chain keeper.
yeah.
Yeah.
But he was a little mortified, and I was like, "Oh my god, that's when I started leaning into a little bit more of the hacky stuff, just because I think people forget. And I
Yeah.
think, we have companies, the tech is cool, like Classified, doing the hub and stuff. But, I don't want people to think like that's the only viable solution, that there's, stuff that's happened in the past that still works great. And it's
Yeah.
not as flashy, but, yeah. Um,
And I think that
let's
this
see.
I was
Oh,
gonna
you're
say,
saying?
this is another reason why, like, I feel like it's so important that nonprofit bike shops and bike co-ops exist. Is it's like one, bike shops are really scary, and I work really hard to make sure that Two Bikes is an unintimidating space to enter. But also we have public work stands that you can come into our shop, and like one of the first things that you see are like two public workbenches that are fully kitted out with Park Tool stuff. So you can break your bike and we can help you fix it.
Yeah.
And it's really, really fun to come in and just hang out on a Saturday, and just like tinker around with people and like help them, figure out how to make their bike shift a little bit better or explain to them why it's never going to shift any better.
Right. Yeah, that's one thing I love about it, because I I patronize a lot of the for profit shops in town, and sometimes there's like a very specific fix that I can't do, but I want to watch them do. But it's kind of weird to ask
Yeah.
the mechanic, like, "Oh, I'm not gonna do it now," and or whatever, timing wise. But I feel like nonprofit bike shops or bike co-ops are, that's kind of the purpose, is to teach and to learn.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. It's just a community learning space. Um, and just, you know, I think it's hard. Like, it's hard because so many bike shops can feel so intimidating. I think that having a bike shop that's a little bit more approachable, maybe a little scruffier, is important to help get more people out on bikes.
Yeah, for sure. Cool. Well, we're coming up on an hour. If you guys have any last minute questions for Mitchell, um, about the nonprofit bike shop life, or throw that in the comment section. Just scrolling through, seeing if we missed anything. Let's see. So for the youth work program that you guys run, like, how do you measure success with a project like that? Like, how many, do you know what I mean? Like, how do you
Yeah.
track like the skills that they learn, and you know how do you measure success?
Yeah, for sure. So one of the things that we do that's really important is we provide an onboarding and an offboarding survey for every youth that starts and finishes the program, that ask questions about, like, one, like, do you feel comfortable working with your hands, kind of like soft skills, but also like hard skills, like do you feel uh you know more confident in your ability to adjust the shifting of a rear derailleur. But I think, like, and what we see from that is a lot of the time, a lot of the areas where we see the largest difference is we see kids that feel more confident working as a team, uh, feeling more literate with a computer. Like that feels like a huge win for us. And then, like, we usually see we have great data about people feeling more confident, like talking to strangers or talking with customers. So getting kind of those self-reported pieces of information back is definitely one of kind of the measurable pieces that help us to define what success look like. Um, but then also, like, if we are getting more people out on bikes at the end of the day, how many people come into our shop. I think one of the really cool things is when you come into Two Bikes, the person who's going to help you find a bike, a lot of the time is going to be like an underserved high school student with the help of our sales and e-commerce instructor, Anne Marie. Shout out Anne Marie. It's awesome. Um, but I think it makes it so much easier to buy a bike because bike shops can be intimidating. It's like, no matter which way you look at it, like high schoolers aren't that intimidating, you know? Like you can learn a lot together.
Yeah.
So, getting meaningful data, seeing that we're improving the lives and skills of young people, but also just building a space where people feel comfortable purchasing their first bike as an adult. Those all are kind of um, metrics that we use for success.
Cool. How many kids have you had go through the program so far in the 3 years you guys have been open?
Yeah, so we launched the program late last year. Our
Okay.
goal is to have 40 interns go through the program. We had one cohort last year, so we had about 10 kids come through the program, and boy, did we learn a lot working with that first group of kids. And now this year we've probably had about 30.
Okay.
Um,
Nice.
yeah, it's been a lot of fun.
Yeah.
We're working on now. So we used to kind of uh, onboard or hire our kids kind of on demand. It was like, oh, that one person's internship's about to end. We'll find someone to fill it. And now we hire and offboard all of our kids in cohorts of 6, um, which is going to be very fun because now they all have their last day on the same day and we can throw them a graduation party. We're very excited.
Awesome. That's cool.
Yeah, it's fun. It's fun.
Nice. Sweet. Well, I'm going to take us home here. For people that want to learn more about Two Bikes, where should they go?
Yeah. So if you're looking to learn more about our programs, our website's a great spot. It's twobikes.org. If you'd like to learn like what's going on any given day, we're pretty up to date on Instagram. So if you'd like to see information about the Knoxville store, it's Two Bikes Knoxville. And if you'd like to kind of watch the progress, if you want a lot of that, this is what I'm struggling with today, talking to camera. I just started a Two Bikes Chattanooga Instagram page that again is more focused on what it's like to launch a nonprofit and less of the actual nuts and bolts of what's going on once it's been built. So yeah,
Right.
thanks so much. And thanks for having me on here. It's fun to talk, 10 years later.
Yeah. Yeah. Say hi to your brother for me.
Yeah. Absolutely. Hopefully he'll look up from working on guitar.
Yeah.
Say hey. I'll let him know.
Cool. All right. Well, I'm going to take it home. Thank you, everybody, for joining us for another podcast. Definitely check out Two Bikes Knoxville and Chattanooga. And once again, if you like content like this, please consider supporting the channel by joining us on Patreon. It's how I'm able to keep this quite literal light on or buy some stickers. I've upgraded to being a stem cap merchant recently, so we have these in the store right now. And as always, everybody, keep the supple side.